Every superhero needs an origin story. I'm rebooting characters from my childhood superhero universe, and this hero never got one. So I asked my viewers for help, and after sifting through over 600 comments, it's time for me to find the perfect origin story. Some of them are right on target, others not so much. But first, let's talk about the hero in question. Meet the Crimson Cardinal. He's just one of the many superheroes I created over a decade ago. He's a member of the Hero Assembly. Back when I made him, he was really just a mysterious character. A hero with a tragic past that turned them into a silent assailant. But if I'm being honest, that might have just been an excuse to figure it out later. Hence why I thought it might be fun to ask you guys for ideas. But what makes a good origin story? In order for an ordinary person to become a superhero, they have to endure some sort of life-altering event. Usually this is a soul-crushing hardship that serves as an inflection point, an opportunity to transcend their tragedy, and transform themselves into a hero that protects others with their newfound abilities. In this case, the hero's design also tells us a lot about the hero. The Crimson Cardinal has a red armored suit with talons. He's a silent, martial arts wielding warrior who has the ability to unleash a supersonic scream. So when reading your comments, we have to factor in these questions. Why is the Cardinal his symbol? How did he gain his superhuman abilities? How was he trained to fight? And what pushed him to become a superhero? If you want to watch me build my superhero universe or want to learn how to make superheroes yourself, subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming videos like this one. Let's dive into your comments. For Crimson Cardinal's tragic origin story, Captain Lakes writes that the Cardinal was born in Russia, and at some point as he got older, they, and I assume the government, found out that he had superpowers. And as he grew up in their facilities and endured the brutal testing that would push him to his limits, he became powerful enough to escape, vowing that no one would be harmed again. This backstory was pretty highly rated. I can imagine that years after being pushed to your limits with no regard for your well-being would inform the person that the Crimson Cardinal became after he escaped. Ben Legal writes, a backstory established in a world that seems to have a big prejudice against superhuman people, kind of like the X-Men. The Cardinal had a harmful relationship with his parents, with the exception being a father figure he found outside of his family that taught him martial arts and good morals, like, do not let your pain define you, or something. But in a hard left turn, tragedy strikes when his mentor is randomly killed by gang violence. So Cardinal ran away from home and became a superhero to take down the criminal underworld. Another very interesting origin story. It's not very clear how he got his powers, but it's clear how they negatively affected his life and forced him to find support in another mentor that ultimately helped shape him into someone who wanted to save others. Let's move on to the next one. Calix says he grew a beak and wasn't able to eat Pringles because he loved giving himself a duck beak, but now he has one. Akamia 146 says, bro was raised by birds, but hunters killed his bird family, and now he fights crime to make sure no other family gets the same fate as his bird family. Ethan D. Harris writes a backstory that incorporates other characters from the superhero universe. Crimson's father was a great scientist, and as a kid, he would regularly watch him work on his inventions, until inevitably something goes wrong, Crimson was caught in the crossfire, and it's revealed that Crimson's father was working on Shaka, who would go on to become a major supervillain. I do enjoy the fact that this backstory takes into account the bigger superhero universe here. As much as I do enjoy Cardinal and Shaka's origin stories being intertwined, I think we're missing some of the martial arts origin here, as well as how he came to be a street-level vigilante. You might be saying to yourself, Xander, you already know how to make an origin story. You've done it for all of your other characters. And I'd say you're absolutely right. I have, and before this video, I even wrote one for the Crimson Cardinal myself. It's right here, and at the end of this video, I'm gonna read my version of the Crimson Cardinal's backstory. Your Nervous System writes a very in-depth origin story that I think I'm just gonna read. The Crimson Cardinal is found as an orphan and raised in a clan of fighters that study a more aerial and graceful form of fighting. The Crimson Cardinal soon learns that these techniques of fighting can't be learned and mastered by still being human, and is soon taken away by his own family to be given this new fighting style. He gains his powers of healing, sonic scream, and flying, and at first he finds these things cool and exciting, and forgives the clan for forcing him to have powers, until he learns from a double agent within the clan that this isn't a good thing. He tells the Crimson Cardinal that his parents and many others were killed in order for the clan to get young members to learn these new martial arts and then gain powers, so that the clan could then take over their homeland and then the world. Crimson Cardinal is skeptical at first, but the double agent shows him the finding of an orphan. The Crimson Cardinal is horrified and enraged by this, and develops a plan with the agent on how to defeat the clan. They try, but fail, and the agent dies while allowing Crimson Cardinal to escape. And he swears from that day on that he'll come back and have revenge. Now this one is pretty interesting, especially the ritual that parents can give their kids to give them powers, that in the end turns out to be a total lie, would leave the Crimson Cardinal with a lot of trust issues. And in relation to how things go down with the clan, he definitely has some work to do, especially if he's going to stop other families from being affected by this. I do wonder by what means the clan were giving these kids powers though. Okay, L Nation 6429 comes in with a dark backstory. Let's see how this delivers. When the Crimson Cardinal was a kid, he got into some horrible accident, maybe run over by a car. However, his healing factor kicked in and he survived. A crazed scientist heard about this and kidnapped the child. Two very traumatic things happening already. He figured because the kid could regenerate, he would be the only test subject he would ever need. Throughout all of these experiments, the Crimson Cardinal gained his other abilities. The tests were torturous for him. The only thing that kept him going was a small window in the lab. Through the window, he would see cardinals, wishing he could be one, flying freely and not trapped and tortured. Eventually, the scientist was caught and the Crimson Cardinal rejoined society. He then used the abilities gained from the tests to ensure that no kid would ever have to suffer like he did. He named himself after the thing that gave him hope of freedom, the Cardinals. I like that he mentions if you wanted to make the story more dark, the scientist could unalive the parents and even become a villain later on. And it's true, I don't think I ever gave the Crimson Cardinal a healing power, but I won't lie, it works well for this story. I think the strongest aspect this story has going for it is the connection that he forms with the Cardinals, with them being as a symbol of hope for him, in a time where he needed it most. Also, just a heads up, this next one is pretty dark. His parents get turned into chicken nuggets. I think if I keep trying to pronounce these usernames, I'm just gonna butcher them, but this user incorporates an interdimensional aspect to Crimson Cardinal's origin story. He was at his parents' lab when he accidentally opened a portal which transports a multi-dimensional beast that destroys the lab. He managed to hide before the portal sucked the beast back in and sent a shockwave around the area. He realizes a weird substance has formed and is severely burning his arm, but he doesn't care as he goes up to find that his parents are buried under all of the building's rubble. He was then able to use all of his hero power to raise the rubble, but it was too late. He decides to dedicate his life to saving others just like his mom told him to the day she passed. He soars the skies every day searching for breaks and cracks in reality to find this beast and get revenge. One day, a rift breaks through the street, and it's Bullet Boy. Bullet Boy was so fast he broke into another reality after unusually being directed to this reality by his mind. Bullet Boy somehow heard bird screeches from an interdimensional call to summon help from the Cardinal. This origin story does touch on some tragedy, as well as what he decides to do with his powers. I'll be honest, I never pinned Crimson Cardinal as an interdimensional hero, but I think it's a really fun idea. This one by Beans has a pretty satisfying twist at the end. The Crimson Cardinal, aka Fang Li, grew up in the mountain monasteries of Nepal, where he underwent brutal training and mastering martial arts alongside his older brother Fang Zhen. However, when a terrorist group seized control of the monastery, he was forced to fight his way out while his older brother Fang Zhen stayed behind and joined the terrorists. After days of trekking through the harsh Nepalese mountains, he finally found civilization. He was adopted and taken back to the United States, but sadly on his 16th birthday, he returned home from school to find that his parents had been murdered by a contract killer, working for Next Tech, who also made Shaka by the way, a killer known only as the Crow. He soon turns into a vigilante to avenge his parents' death, and later finds out that the Crow is none other than his older brother. A lot of twists and turns in here. It's clear where his tragedy comes from, as well as where he received his martial arts training, as well as how he got to the United States so that he could be in the mix with Bullet Boy and the crew. I did also appreciate his arch nemesis going by the Crow, and it happens to be his brother. It is so cool to read different interpretations that people have written for this character. In most cases, these origins actually answered many of the questions that the Cardinal's backstory needed to answer. My version of the Crimson Cardinal's origin story goes something like this. Growing up, Kalen was a quiet kid from the countryside. With no friends around, he spent his time wandering in the woods, where in his own way, he didn't feel so alone. It wasn't until his father's job moved Kalen and his family to the city. Within weeks, Kalen awoke one day to find that his father had left, leaving a note explaining that he had been called to a confidential task at work. Though he promised to return, his absence left Kalen and his mother to navigate their new life alone. In the city, Kalen struggled to connect with others his age and became a target for bullies. Throughout his struggle to adjust to his new environment, he was frequently visited by a red cardinal, reminding him of the home he left behind. Tragically, Kalen's mother was murdered after her place of work became the target of an armed robbery. Kalen was devastated. His cardinal became the only solace he had left in the world. With no news of his father and an impending transition to foster care, the cardinal appeared to him once more, this time beckoning him to follow. On that dark and rainy night, he escaped from custody and made his way out of the city. He trekked into the untamed forest where the cardinal led him to a mysterious cave. There, he encountered an older man outfitted in old red armor. The cardinal belonged to him, and he shared with Kalen a proposition. Should he accept the call of the Cardinal, he would earn the chance to embrace a long-lasting legacy of warriors and become the people's protector, armed with the powers the bird would bestow. Of course, his answer was yes. Kalen discovered numerous newfound abilities, including a power to manipulate wind for flight and unleash a supersonic bird call. Embracing his chosen destiny, Kalen trained relentlessly in martial arts under the guidance of his new teacher, taking on the name of the Crimson Cardinal. Years later, he spends his days bringing justice to a city plagued by crime, honoring the memory of his late mother, with the secret hope of finding the men who killed her. He lies at the heart of the city in wait, a watchful guardian inspired by the bird that had been with him through the darkest day of his life. Now, there's a lot more to this story that I did not include in this video. Questions that could be answered if the Crimson Cardinal got his own comic. Let me know down in the comments below which of these backstories you thought really fit the Crimson Cardinal. Make sure to click right here and watch my last video where I gave 3 of my old superheroes new origin stories. A huge thanks to every one of you that left your ideas down in the comments below. It was super fun reading all of them. See ya.